Like if you have grit and hustle, anybody can be successful in this field. Here's the thing. If you don't have enough business to eat, you're going to take on those clients because you need to eat. And that's a hard place to be. Also to make sure you don't buy a lemon and that you're not in court. $350 with a $600 HOA, or let's call $100,000, $450 with no HOA. So that's how your purchasing power changes. I'm like, hey team, unless a house is burning down figuratively or literally, I don't want you to call me. We sometimes as agents want to create these rules and then we don't follow our own rules. And then we're annoyed. It's like, well, you can't be annoyed because you were texting them at 9 p.m.
What qualities do you think someone needs to be successful in real estate?
We say at Keller Williams that it's simple, but it's not easy. So like if you have grit and hustle, anybody can be successful in this field. I personally did go to school for real estate. You don't have to go to school for real estate. I mean, you don't have to have a degree for real estate. And I did, but if you are able to hustle, knock on doors, do open houses, talk to people, you can be successful. I think that's the one thing they don't teach you in school when you are taking your real estate classes. They don't tell you, oh, by the way, you start from nothing. You have to build a book of business. I think that's the hardest part about being a realtor.
So for someone that's just starting out, should you be looking at your compensation package, your commissions, the cuts that the firm is taking? Like, how do you evaluate who to choose and where to go?
Doing your interview as a real estate agent when you go into a broker, it's like the easiest interview because they just hire you on the spot because guess what? You pay the broker. And I don't think a lot of the people not in real estate understand that. So every agency typically will take a cut. And there's some who take very little and they also give very little. So like with Keller Williams, they're big on education and we have what's called a cap system. So you really have to lay out all of your, what you're looking for. And also are they going to pay for your signs? Are they going to pay for business cards? Are they going to kind of help you get started? Will you have a coach? So there's a lot of different things to look at. But I think if you're new in the business and you don't know what to ask, it can be hard. So it'd be good to couple with an agent or talk to somebody who can help guide you. When
people first start out as a realtor, they sell 1 or 2 homes a year. So how does a realtor kind of get unstuck doing that 1 to 2 years a home?
Yeah. I mean, I really think sometimes what happens with new agents is they spend so much time going to all these classes and very little doing the prospecting, right? So we say in a lot of the trainings that I've taken, if you're not lead generating, that's what we call it, going out looking for business, knocking on doors, talking to people, all that other stuff doesn't matter if you don't have people to talk to and people that need your help. So I think if new agents could focus mostly on prospecting and then also the training, I mean, you need to know what you're doing when you're out there, but I think they flip flop it and do so much training and then they're only doing a couple sales a year. And it's hard to live off of that. I mean, after expenses and stuff, 1 to 2 deals is hard to live off of.
How do you justify or what goes into all that work that justifies that commission that realtors get?
We are not just out driving the fancy cars, showing property. There's so much behind the scenes. There's late night work. There's, I was up at 4 this morning prepping newsletters. I mean, there's just a lot you don't see. And I think something else to keep in mind is when you look at your commission check, let's say, 3% of 500,000, it's 15,000. When you look at the take home of an agent, it's probably 50%. So it might be 7,500, which sounds great. And then you're talking about expenses and mileage and all these different things. And if you close one deal that month, maybe it's, $4,000 after or before taxes. So I think it seems like a lot. And I remember when I got my first paycheck and I was so excited. And then it's oh, but I didn't have anything else in escrow. Right? So 5,000 to 7,000 sounds like a lot, but if that's the only deal you have and you have nothing else coming up, you have to save that so that you can eat the next month. So I think there's a misconception, but I would say it's normally probably 50% of what the take home is to realtors versus the gross commission that you see.
And how do you navigate those hard conversations when people are just being, mean or rude to you?
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you don't have enough business to eat, you're going to take on those clients because you need to eat. And that's a hard place to be in, which is why I go back to lead generation and finding more clients, because when you have enough, when you get that one client that's disrespecting you or not, not appreciating your boundaries or, respecting those, you tend to go to them because you think, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. I'll go to them versus when you have enough, you say, you know what, I'd love to make this work. Here's what I need, or here's what I can do for you. But if it doesn't work, that's okay. And that's a hard statement to make when you need the business. And so, which is why I always go back to keep being out there trying to get more business so that you don't have to feel desperate to take on people that maybe aren't respectful towards you.
Do you ever see people trying to submit offers without a realtor, and could that ever backfire on people?
without a realtor, like how do you know what to ask for on a repair, like on a home inspection? You might not know it as a consumer. Which things should I ask for? What's reasonable? What's not? What if you ask for too little or too much? And then the seller's like, nope. And then they, cancel because you guys can't come to an agreement. So I think what we say now too, because real estate has changed with the internet and all these properties are at everybody's fingertips, even the consumers, is we're here now to for the customer service piece, because we really, value that strongly, but also to make sure you don't buy a lemon and that you're not in court. Like those are kind of the things that we maybe bring value to more than hey, can you just show me the house? Because you often might be going to the house on the open house, or you don't need us as much in that respect. But I think when you're making the biggest financial decision of your life, it's good to have somebody on your side to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
For those that then end up wanting to use you as a double agent, as you mentioned, the double agency, how do you manage your fiduciary responsibility to both the buyer and the seller?
So just to step back real fast, when we got into real estate, or I got into real estate, it was I got into real estate to have choices. And so one of the choices is, if I can, I actually don't love it. I don't love dual agency because I don't feel like I can 100% represent you, the buyer, and 100% represent the seller in super good faith. Obviously, it's still allowed in California. Some states it's not. So on our team, oftentimes we'll have Deanna, who works with me, represent the buyer, and then I represent the seller. So there's still that separateness. But we have had transactions where we do both. Oftentimes it's hey, I'm buying from my mom, or I'm buying from a friend or somebody at church or whatnot. And we've done that. We like to, if we can in that situation, have the inspection reports done up front. So then it's hey, out on the table, what do you guys talk about it initially, and then we'll come in and do the paperwork with that. So
what is the general tax rate that people should expect? I know it's different from every region, but generally, how do people research that so they don't get blindsided by the property taxes?
Usually the tax rate is about 1.25%. That's what most lenders in Sacramento County, if you're calling them and saying, hey, what would my mortgage payment be? With taxes included, they're usually going to use 1.25%. All the Tri-County websites, Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer County, Yolo, et cetera, those all have websites that you can look up the property taxes, and you can check and see when the bonds fall off. There's phone numbers you can call. So we'll often look at those for clients prior to them making an offer so that they're aware. And so that's usually how we go about it.
So you said the bonds. So what are bonds exactly?
Yeah.
In the property taxes?
Yeah. So they're Mello-Roos bonds, typically for schools and parks, the fire department. There's all kinds of different ones that come up. Some of them fall off after 20 years. Some are indefinite and they keep going on and on. Sometimes you don't know by just looking at them. But it's important when somebody's making an offer that they're not, just thinking it's going to be 1.25% when it's really 1.4. That's something to look at and kind of know the whole picture before you make that offer.
So how do bonds come into play in the first place? I mean, what happens tomorrow? Could I just potentially get a new bond?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or measure?
So usually it's voted in. And so we were talking about a property in Rancho Cordova, and that bond had already been in place, this specific bond, and they just increased it. So it was actually already there. They just increased it, but it was voted in. So usually that's how, it happens. All new builds, almost everyone that I've ever went into has different bonds. And so they'll say, hey, there's no HOA, no homeowners association, but guess what? The Mello-Roos or extra taxes is $400 a month. It's oh, really?
What about utilities? Do you see that being a factor that people are I'm going to definitely stay out of that area because they don't have these different utility providers? And
I think it's definitely a question that comes up. So in El Dorado Hills, that's what it is. It's PG&E. And so people are concerned about that, or the rates for it. So then people get solar, right? So that can help offset that. But it is higher for PG&E. So people prefer to have SMUD. But yeah, in El Dorado Hills, there's, it's PG&E up the hill. So for SMUD and electric. So I have had people say, I want to stay out of there because of that. So it's just something to think about.
Would then solar be a good alternative to try to reduce some of those costs? Maybe in the long run, right? You got to do your calculations, but
yeah. So it depends on the solar and is it leased? Is it owned? Is there a power purchase agreement? So there's a bunch of different things. And sometimes as a consumer, you look at all these options, and we've looked at solar a few different times, mostly my husband looking at it. And I'm I don't know if it doesn't make that much difference because we have SMUD. I don't really want to invest in it. Now, all new home construction, you have to have solar, right? That's the law. That's how they're all being built. But you just need to know what you're getting, because the next question might be, oh, well, will I get that back when I sell my house, right? Is there adjustment up in my value because I have solar. Well, if it's leased solar, not really, because you're just renting the solar. So it doesn't necessarily, give you an upwards adjustment in the value. If it's owned, that's a different story. But yes, people will consider solar when they go up the hill for that reason.
Is it possible to ever dissolve an HOA? And have you ever seen it happen?
Like the HOA just goes away and there's no fee? Not in my experience. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention on that, I wish we could share a screenshot, but is how your purchasing power changes when you have an HOA. So I just shared something on my story this morning, and don't quote me exactly, but like if you are a buyer and your purchase price, let's say for a condo is $350 and your HOA is $600, you could buy a similar property without an HOA for like $450. So that's the difference in like $350 with a $600 HOA, or let's call $100,000, $450 with no HOA. So that's how your purchasing power changes. But dissolving them, I've never seen that happen.
Home warranties. How does that factor into buying a house? Is that something that you recommend?
So we tell people that it's an insurance policy, right? Like you are buying this and there's always exclusions. And so typically that first year, it's cheaper than if you were to renew the policy. And sometimes you can get the seller to pay for it. So let's say you get the seller to pay for it. It's good for a year. You have older appliances. Hey, you might, I don't think it's bad to have it. They do charge a trip fee, usually around $100 or so, to come in and look at the item. The one thing with home warranties is they will do everything in their power to not have to replace that old water heater or the heater. If you can deal with the headache, sure. But when they don't return your call or they can't find the part, or like the water heater is so old, just get rid of it. They're like, oh, we can fix it. It's still working. So you just have to decide if it's worth it. If you can deal with the pain, then yeah.
Closing costs often are a surprise. How would they kind of generally calculate that formula?
I would say around 3 to 4% of the purchase price. And then in addition to, your down payment. So if you're putting 20% down, maybe 24% to calculate for the closing costs, somewhere around there. And it depends on what your lender charges. Are they charging an origination fee? Are you having your taxes and insurance impounded into an account and paying with your payment or not? So there's some different things that go into that.
The overall closing costs, are you able to negotiate that with the lender? Is that something that you've ever seen happen?
You can compare, like we encourage our clients, like compare and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Because somebody might say, hey, I got a rate of 5.875. And you look at their estimated closing sheet, which is what you want to ask lenders for when you're getting, a quote from them. And then it's like, oh yeah, you're paying a point for that. So then if you're not comparing apples to apples, you might be thinking one's better over the other, but you can definitely shop the lender, shop the rate. Yeah.
Where are interest rates going in the next 6 to 12 months?
If they go down, we're going to see probably a lot of people enter the market, and we'll see prices possibly go up if the interest rates go down. And we probably won't ever see them back at 3. I mean, 3 is like I've been doing this 20 years. That's the only time we've ever seen them 3. They were never 3. When you look at the trajectory of rates, it's like we may never in our lifetime see 3 again. Well, then people were hung up on that too from COVID.
Yeah. Well, historically, what were they then? What's the normal range that
have I want to say around 7.
What is like refinance? Does it make sense? When should someone consider looking into that to see if it works for them?
How much is it going to cost you to refi, right? Because it's not free. And then how long will it take you to recoup that cost? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 5 years? And are you going to be in the home for 5 years? Because if not, right, what is that like break even? Then it doesn't make sense.
What is the typical length that someone does stay in their home?
Yeah, it used to be 7 years, like back when I was first in the business. And now we're because we send anniversary cards to our clients when they've been in their house for so many years. And it's like, happy 12-year anniversary, 13. So I feel like we're seeing people stay in their homes longer now than it used to be, every 5 to 7 years.
Well, yeah, probably a lot of people locked in a low interest rate. And so they're like, no reason to move. I'm not going to get this price again.
Yes.
So then what about a recast? How is that different than a refinance? And when would someone consider that?
Let's say that you have a house and you want to buy another house, but you don't want to have to sell this house right away. So you might put 5% down on this new house and then after sell your current existing property and take, let's say, $200 down and put it back down on this house that you bought, and they would re-amortize the loan so that your payment goes down. So you basically can take this big chunk, put it on the replacement house, and then your payment will go down. Something to consider though is like you'll probably get a better rate today with 20% down than you will with 5%. So whatever you do on that replacement property, which let's say is 5%, and so your rate's a little higher, when you put all that money down, you don't get the better rate.
Oh, gotcha.
But it could be a good option especially when it's in a competitive market or a neighborhood where you're competing with other offers to do that. And then your payment can be re-amortized.
For buyers, do you see any common mistakes that buyers typically run into when they're looking at homes?
Maybe not being prepared for the financing part of it. Also buying furniture or cars or co-signing for people during the transaction. The lender will check your credit the day of closing. So they will check and see, did you buy furniture? Did you buy a car? And all that changes your debt to income ratio. So let's say you're buying a $500,000 house and then you go out and buy a $30,000 car. They say, oh, actually now you're approved for a $450,000 house, not 500. So I would say that's one thing. I think with a good realtor on your side, like they'll guide you with the steps to make. I mean, present the information, then you have to ultimately as a buyer make the choice. But I feel like with a good agent, there doesn't have to be a bunch of mistakes.
What about on the seller side? Is there common mistakes that sellers make?
Prepping it, staging it, painting it neutral colors, pricing it appropriately, as in like what is currently selling or what is an attractive price right now to get buyers to come and look at your house and make an offer. We just say you have that one shot to, show your house to the world. So if you don't take those measures to prep, then it'll often come back to bite you later. And sometimes we are surprised by, sometimes sellers are willing to do price drops are not cheap, right? So if you're reducing your price, you might reduce it by $20,000 versus maybe spending the $3,000 to $8,000 to do painting and staging, right? Some of the other things, like a price drop costs you more than some of those prepped items will. And we just find that that's the biggest thing is pricing and then condition. Yeah.
Is there anything about real estate that we didn't cover that you want to dive into? Any direction you want to go?
Mental health of real estate, like as an agent, you're always going. I think there's so many of us out there that like don't take time to like turn off our phone or be with family because you're always on. Almost like a badge of honor, like being busy, right? It's like, we're so busy or I'm busy. And it's like, but what are you missing out on because you're so busy? Or are you eating lunch? Or like, there's different things in life that you need to just like take care of yourself. And I think this business has the ability to like take all your time. And I think you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to give everything to real estate? And then you kind of lose part of yourself. So I think that's just an area where, as a realtor that's been doing it 20 years, like I'm constantly having to like create boundaries so that I can be healthy and have a family life and, a successful real estate career.
What was the key decision point that made you want to get into real estate?
I was a receptionist at a real estate firm in college and was handing out commission checks. And I also come from a background of like, we didn't have a lot growing up. I started working young. I never wanted to struggle with finances. And I was handing out commission checks to all these agents. And I decided I want to be on the other side. And so that was the turning point of like, well, I can get my license. I don't really like to be in sales, but I can get my license and try it. And so I think when I saw what they were doing and I got to really pick the brains of those agents that were there on the weekend answering the calls, it helped me to see like that could be my next move. And so that's when it changed for me.
So what drives you to keep going, even when it's like tough and everything?
I don't want to struggle and I want to have choices. And I think real estate allows that. I get to be able to like go to my kids, basketball game or volunteer at their school. That might mean I still have to work later that night, right? But I have the flexibility. There's nobody telling me, oh, you can't do this. So I can schedule my clients around it. And I think, that flexibility is what keeps me going. I'm like, I don't think there's any job I can have where I can, pick my kids up from school. And mind you, it's through people, right? We have a team so that my team can then show clients property at 3 p.m. if I am home with my kids. And my kids are getting older. But I think that's what fuels me is that flexibility to create my own schedule and then create my own income. If I want to sell this many houses, it's all in the effort you put in.
So, Jenica, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your stories, and your tips today. It's clear that realtors are not just about transactions. They're really about navigating challenges and guiding people through some of the biggest decisions that they're making in their life. So thank you for helping them dream bigger than they ever thought possible. With that, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good rest of your day and take care. Bye-bye.